Hello everyone, welcome. In this session, we are going to learn the basics of biological neurons. Upon completion of this video, you will be able to learn the basic structure of biological neurons, which includes dendrite, soma, axon, and synapse. You will learn the definition and functionalities for each part and how they work collaboratively to transmit information from one neuron to another. You will also learn three classes of neurons, including sensory neuron, relay neuron, and motor neuron, and understand how different types of neurons work together. Lastly, I will provide several multiple-choice exercises to reinforce our learning in this session. The central nervous system, abbreviated as CNS, controls most of the functions of our body and mind. For example, if we see a danger, oh, the house is on fire, then our ability to act on that information depends on the nervous system. The central nervous system of human consists of two parts, the brain and the spinal cord. The variety of animals shows different structures of the nervous systems. For example, a sea star has a very simple nervous structure. There is no brain. The nervous system of a sea star is characterized by a nerve ring that surrounds the mouth and connects each individual arm through a radial nerve. Another example is a dog, whose nervous system includes the brain, spinal cord, and branching nerves that conduct signals throughout the entire body. For human, the brain is the most important part of our central nervous system. It is made up of hundreds of billions of neurons. Neuron is the basic functional unit of our brain. Sometimes, neuron is also known as nerve cell or neural processing unit. Neurons generate electrical signals called action potentials, which allows them to transmit information over long distances. To better understand how information is transmitted through the neuron, let's first take a close look at the structure of the biological neurons. In a biological neuron, there are four basic elements. The first part is dendrite, which receives signals from other neurons, and then passes this information to the cell body. Dendrites can be regarded as the input. The second part is cell body, also known as soma, which aggregates the input from dendrite and processes this information. It is like a CPU or a calculator. Once the information is processed, they will be transmitted along the axon to other neurons or muscles. An axon is a nerve fiber that carries action potentials away from the cell body to the end of the axon, which we call axon terminal. The last concept is synapse, which is the point of connection to other neurons. Sometimes, synapses are also known as neural junction. The junction point can be between two neurons or between a neuron and a target cell, such as a muscle. We will detail them later. First, let's look at dendrites. Dendrites are tree-like structures that extend away from the cell body to receive messages from the other neurons. Dendrites receive input data. The word dendrite comes from the ancient Greek word dendron, which means tree. We can see the dendrites have a branching structure like a tree. On the surface of dendrites, there are a number of small protrusions called spines, whose shapes are like small mushrooms. These spines receive excitatory input from axons. The signal received by a dendrite is passed to the soma. Soma is the cell body where the nucleus lies and where the neuron's DNA is housed. The soma takes all the information from the dendrites and puts them together in an area called axon hillock. This picture depicts the detailed structure of a cell body. We can see the ball in the center is the nucleus, and the axon hillock is in this area, which is the junction point between soma and axon. Axon hillock controls the firing of the neuron. If the total strength of the signal exceeds the threshold limit of an axon hillock, the structure will activate a signal known as an action potential down the axon. An axon is a tube-like nerve fiber which propagates the integrated signal from the soma to specialized endings called axon terminals. In this picture, these are the axon terminals. When a signal is transmitted through axon, there are two factors that may influence the speed of signal transmission. One is the diameter of the axon. In general, the larger the diameter, the faster it transmits information. The second factor is a fatty substance around the axon called myelin. Some axons are covered with myelin that acts as an insulator to protect themselves. As illustrated in the following picture, the blue stuff is the myelin. Note that not all the axons have a myelin covering. Some diseases may result in damage to the myelin in our brain. This picture provides a comparison between a normal myelin and a damaged one. When the myelin is damaged, information transmission may become slow or even stop, leading to neurological problems. In general, the myelinated axons transmit information faster than other neurons. Based on the aforementioned concepts, we are now ready to learn how a neuron works. When we watch a movie, for example Tom and Jerry, our sense organs, such as eye and ear, are often interacting with the outside world. They relay visual and audio information to the neuron. After that, neurons generate electrical signals called action potentials, allowing them to transmit information over long distances. The neuron may get activated only when its criteria is met. For example, the neuron will fire if visuals are funny and produces a response, such as a laugh. This is only a very simple description. In reality, the modeling of the neuron is much more complicated. It is not only a single neuron that does all the work. There is a massive parallel interconnected network of neurons. The parallel network ensures that there is division of work. Each neuron performs a certain role or responds to a certain stimulus. For example, one neuron is to evaluate whether the visual design of this movie is eye-catching. The second neuron is to assess whether the story is humorous. The third one is to judge if sound effects are funny. Some neurons may fire in response to the information, and in return relay information to other neurons they are connected to. In this example, one agrees that the visual design of this movie is very attractive, and the story is quite interesting. Thus, these two neurons get activated and will pass the information to the neuron in the second layer. The neuron in the second layer fires in the end, because 2 of the 3 inputs fired, reaching a certain threshold to produce action potentials. Based on the role, neurons can be distinguished into 3 classes. They are sensory neurons, motor neurons, and relay neurons. Sensory neurons are often located in receptors, such as our eyes, ears, and tongue. The role of sensory neurons is to tell the brain what is happening outside the body, which produces our sensations, such as vision, hearing, and taste. Motor neurons look like this, whose shapes are slightly different from sensory neurons. Motor neurons are often located in motor cortex and the central nervous system, such as brain and spinal cord. The key role of motor neurons is to allow the brain to control our muscle movements. The third type of neurons are relay neurons, also known as interneurons. They are located in the central nervous system, such as our brain and spinal cord. The main role of relay neurons is to allow sensory and motor neurons to communicate effectively. In a nutshell, sensory neurons will pass information from receptors to the central nervous system. Motor neurons will transmit information from the central nervous system to effectors, such as muscles. Relay neurons will build the connection between sensory neurons and motor neurons and transmit information within the central nervous system. Here is an illustrative example which shows the function of the 3 different types of neurons. When we see a cup of water, we want to take it. Then, what happens to these neurons? Firstly, when our eyes see the cup of water, information are passed from our eyes to the brain through sensory neurons. Then, relay neurons transmit the information within the brain and spinal cord. Lastly, the motor neurons allow the brain to control our muscle movements, and we take this cup of water. Before ending this session, let's do some multiple choice exercises to reinforce what we have learned so far. Question 1. The human central nervous system consists of A. The nerves around the body. B. The brain. C. Peripheral nervous system. D. The spinal cord. To answer this question, let's look at this picture. This is our brain. This is the spinal cord. These 2 parts, showing orange, make our central nervous system, CNS. There are also many nerves around our body, showing yellow color. These nerves are the peripheral nervous system, PNS. The central and peripheral nervous systems make our nervous system. In light of this structure, the correct answers are B, the brain, and D, the spinal cord. Question 2. Which of the following is not a part of a neuron? A. Synapse. B. Nucleus. C. Lobe. D. Dendrite. To answer this question, let's look at the basic structure of a neuron. These are dendrites, which receive signals from other neurons. This is the soma, also known as cell body, which aims to process information. This is the axon, whose task is to transmit the processed information to other neurons or muscles. The synapses are the points of junctions between neurons. Therefore, we can exclude A and D. In the soma, there is a ball in the center, called nucleus, where most DNA is located. Thus, nucleus is also a part of a neuron. C is the correct answer. Question 3. Which parts send signals away from neurons, whereas which parts receive signals from other neurons? To get the correct answer, you should understand how the signals are processed and transmitted through the neuron. Firstly, dendrites receive signals from other neurons and passes them to the soma. Soma is like a calculator to process these information. Axons transmit these information to other neurons or muscles. Therefore, the correct answers are B and D. Question 4. Which of the following statements are true? A. The myelinated axons transmit information faster than other neurons. B. The smaller the diameter of the axon, the faster it transmits information. C. Myelin acts as an insulator to protect axons. D. All axons have a myelin covering. To answer this question, let's look at the detailed structure of the axon. The yellow stuff is the nerve fiber. Around the fiber, some axons have a myelin covering, which acts as an insulator to protect themselves. There are two factors that may influence the speed of information transmission. One is the diameter of a nerve fiber. The other is the myelin covering. If the diameter of the axon is large, and the axon has a myelin covering, then there is a very fast transmission speed. Otherwise, it's slow. Therefore, among A, B, C, the correct answers are A and C. D is not correct, because some axons may not have myelin coverings. In adults, some infections, stroke, or immune disorder can damage the myelin. Question 5. The eye is an example of A. A relay neuron, B. A sense organ, C. A stimulus, D. A soma. To answer this question, we should know that eye is a sense organ which takes in the stimuli of light, translates them into signals, and sends the signals to the brain. A stimulus is a change in the environment, neither external or internal, that is detected by a receptor. For example, the light ray is a stimulus detected by eye. The sound is a stimulus detected by ear. Chemicals in the air are stimuli detected by nose. Chemicals in food are stimuli detected by tongue. Touch and temperature are stimuli detected by skin. Therefore, the correct answer is B. Question 6. Which type of neuron transmits a signal from a sense organ to the central nervous system? Whereas, which type of neuron transmits a signal from the central nervous system to an effector such as muscle? This question is about the function of different types of neurons. To answer this question, we should pay attention to the following fact. Firstly, when our eyes see the cup of water, information are passed through sensory neuron from our eyes to the brain. Then, relay neurons, also known as interneurons, transmit the information within the CNS. Lastly, motor neuron allows the brain to control our muscle movements, and we take this cup of water. Therefore, sensory neuron is from sense organ to the CNS, whereas motor neuron is from CNS to the effector muscle. A and C are the correct answers.